Hello sports fans, it's me, Sportsman Z, Bob Zolke, and today we are going to have a Strat-O-Matic face-off between the 1979 Chicago White Sox, who will be visiting the 1991 powerful Oakland A's. Now here are my packets for these teams. So as you can see, the White Sox would be the definite underdog here with a record in 1979 of only 73 and 87, whereas the A's were 84 and 78. And of course the A's had Rickey Henderson, they had Mark McGwire, they had Canseco, Harold Baines as their DH. So the White Sox had a much less notable lineup than they did. So without further ado, let's go through the lineups. The first batter for the White Sox will be Alan Bannister, and there's Alan Bannister's card, and he will be the left fielder. As you can see, he's a left field 4. The next batter will be Chet Lemon playing center field, and there's his card. The next batter will be Orjay Orta, and he will today be at second base. Not a very good defensive second baseman, but he could hit. The next batter will be first baseman Lamar Johnson. Or no, actually Lamar Johnson will be at DH. My mistake. He's at DH today. The next batter will be third baseman Kevin Bell. And there's his card and his stats for 1979. The next batter will be Claudell Washington, playing right field today for the White Sox. Then we have Greg Pryor, who will be today's shortstop for the 1979 White Sox. And then we have Gold Glover at first base, Mike Squires. I don't know if he ever really actually did win a Gold Glove, but I imagine he must have. He was one of the best first basemen of the 80s. And then batting last and playing catcher today will be Bill Naharodny. And he will be catching today's White Sox pitcher, who will be Randy Scarberry. And there are his card and his statistics for 1979. And now for the home Oakland A's. Here's their lineup. They will lead off with Rickey Henderson, Hall of Famer, left fielder. Got his name on the field now in Oakland. Batting next will be Willie Wilson. This was Willie Wilson. He's a center field 3, probably near the tail end of his career, so he wasn't the one that he was back in Kansas City in center field. Batting next in the third spot, Mark McGwire, the first baseman. You can see his statistics there for 1991. Then Jose Canseco, the man who brought to light the entire PED thing, and he will be playing right field for the Oakland A's today. And then batting after him will be the DH, Harold Baines, who also spent significant time, as you may recall, if you're a baseball fan, on the White Sox, but this particular year he was on the A's. And then Mike Lego My Ego at Gallego at second base 2. So he was a good defensive second baseman. He just wasn't a great hitter. And then at shortstop, we're going to have Mike Bordick for the A's. And then picking up the second to last spot will be catcher Terry Steinbach. And then batting ninth, Brooke Jacoby for the A's in the last spot at third base. So without further ado, and let me get a drink of my tea here. Okay, let's get on with the game. The first batter for the White Sox will be Alan Bannister, and he gets a 3-5, and that's a fly ball center field B. So he is fly out 8. The next batter is Chet Lemon, the center fielder. He's got a 6-8 on Bob Welch, and that's a triple 1-2 single. And that's going to be a triple. Chet Lemon rips a triple. And that's going to be the first hit allowed by Bob Welch. And by the way, I don't know if I showed the card, but here's Bob Welch's card for anybody that wanted to see that. Loved Bob Welch, who tragically died a few years ago. The next batter will be Orjay Orta. The A's are not going to do anything special right here. It's still early in the game. And he gets a 4-10, and that is a ground ball third base. And the third baseman for the A's is Brooke Jacoby. He's a 3. And that's an 8 and a 3 at third base. And that's going to be an out 3. I guess runners hold. Or runner holds. And now that's 2 outs. And that brings up, so third base, that was 5-3. And now that brings up Lamar Johnson. And he gets a 3-4, and that's a ground ball shortstop A. So that's going to be 6-3. And the White Sox, despite a 1-out triple, come away with no runs in the top of the first. And so now that brings up the A's to bat against Scarberry. And here we go with the dice falling off the table. Ricky Henderson. And Ricky Henderson gets a 2-5, which is a walk. And Scarberry gives up the walk. And now you've got, with nobody out and 1 runner on, you have Willie Wilson. And he gets a 1-11, and that's a walk. So Scarberry starts off very poorly here, walking the first 2 men of the game for the A's. And that brings up Mark McGuire, and he's got a lot of walks on his card. 3-7, though, is a ground ball double play to the shortstop. So he goes 6-4-3. And Scarberry is very happy to see that, see his defense bail him out. And now with a man at third, that brings up Jose Canseco, and he gets a 3-6, and that's a walk. So the third walk already for Randy Scarberry, but no hits yet. And now with runners at the corners and 2 away, that brings up Harold Baines. And he gets a 5-3 on Scarberry. That's a ground ball to the pitcher, and Scarberry is a 1. And that is going to be a 1. That's probably a base hit. Or is it? Nope, that's an out. So that was, he was out. It's been a while since I've looked at the charts, so So Baines went out 1-3. And that's no runs for Oakland, despite the fact that they also had a man at third base. So now we have, in the second inning, we have, no, Kevin Bell should be up, not Lamar Johnson. He made the last out. This will bring up Kevin Bell. And he gets a 1-7, which is a single 1-10. And that'll be a single. And that's a hit allowed by Bob Welch. First hit allowed by him. And then the next batter is Claudell Washington. And he gets a 2-8. And 2-8 is a fly ball right field B. So there's one away. Fly out 9. And one out. Next guy up is Greg Pryor. And he gets a 3-8, which is a fly ball left field B. There's two away. And he went out to 7. And then that brings up Mike Squires, the first baseman, and he gets a 6-11, and that's a walk on Welch. So now we have runners at first and second with two away. And that's Welch's first walk of the day. And then that brings up Bill Naharodny with two away. And he gets a 4-7, and that's a single 1-5. And he gets a single. And runners will only go one base on that. And that's the second hit allowed today by Bob Welch. And now we go to the top of the order with Alan Bannister up, and he gets a 2-5, and that's a walk that forces in a run. So, walk, RBI, Bell scores. Second walk for him and an earned run on Bob Welch's record. And that brings up Chet Lemon. And Chet Lemon gets a 4-8, and that's a pop out to first. Pop out to 3, but the White Sox do strike for a run there off of Welch. And that brings up Harold Baines. And he gets a 6-2 on Scarberry's card. That's a shortstop, and that's Bell, and I believe he's a 4 at short. Yes, he is. And that's a 14, and that's going to be an out. So Harold Baines goes 6-3. Or no, not Harold Baines. Sorry, that was Gallego. He goes 6-3 in the bottom of the second, one out. And that brings up Mike Bordick. And Bordy gets a 5-7, which is a fly ball right field B. So he gets a fly out to 9, and that's two away. And then Terry Steinbach, who gets a 1-12, and that's a ground ball third base A. 5-3. And the A's get no runs there, and that brings up, and for the White Sox to lead off the third inning, does it bring up Borda? Yes, it does bring up Borda. George Orta to face Bob Welch. He gets a 1-8, and that's a pop out to first base. Pop out to 3, one away. Lamar Johnson, the DH, comes up. He gets a 4-6, and that's a walk. So Lamar Johnson draws the walk from Welch, who has walked his third guy of the day. One out, and that brings up Kevin Bell. And Kevin Bell gets a 5-2, and that's a fly ball right field B. Fly out to 9, 2 outs, man at first, and Claudell Washington up. And he gets a 4-8, and that's a pop out to first base. So, no runs for the White Sox in the third. And now that brings up Terry Steinbach. Oh boy. Let's roll that again. That's a 2-4, and that's a ground ball third base A. So, no wait, no. That was not Steinbach. He made the last out. So this should have been Jacoby, and 2-4 on him is a ground ball third base. All right. Yeah. All right. So yeah, he's out third base A. I had the right card. I just didn't think I had the right batter. But anyway, 5-3. That's one away. And Ricky Henderson's up, and he gets a 3-2, and that's going to be a fly ball right field B. Fly out 9, and that brings up Willie Wilson. And he gets a 5-6, and that's a fly ball left field B. So he flies out to 7. And the A's get nothing in the third. This powerful A's lineup is being shut down by Randy Scarberry, although Bob Welch is doing quite well too. And leading off in the fourth will be Greg Pryor for the White Sox, and he gets a 6-3 on Welch, and that's a ground ball to the pitcher. Welch is a 1, and that's going to be a 20. 20 and a 1 is roll again. That's an 18. That's a roll again. And that's a 15. And that's probably an out. And it is. So, Pryor goes 1-3. And that brings up Mike Squires. And by the way, I love these old-time cards. I love these like before the reissued and before the perforated stock cards. Awesome. But anyway, Mike Squires comes up and he gets a 3-4, and that's a ground ball first base A, so that's 2 away. He goes, we'll say 3-1. Maybe the first baseman flipped the ball to the pitcher. And then that brings up Bill Naharodny for his second at bat. He singled last time and was part of that rally the White Sox had, and he gets a 4-9, and that's a single, another single for Bill Naharodny. Good day for him. And only the third hit given up by Welch here in the third, or here in the fourth, rather. So with Naharodny at first, we have Alan Bannister, and he gets a 5-6, and that's a pop out to shortstop. Pop out to 6. So, no runs for the White Sox, still clinging to a 1-0 lead here, going into the bottom of the fourth, with the A's coming to bat. And the A's will bring up Willie Wilson, center fielder Willie Wilson. He gets a 2-11, and that's a ground ball third base A. So, that was not Wilson. That was Mark McGuire. 2-11. I forget to move the cards down to the bottom, but he got a fly ball right field, or a fly ball left field B. So, he flies out to 7. And that brings up Canseco. And he gets a 1-8, and he strikes out, 2 away. That's the first guy to strike out this entire game, which is weird. And then that brings up, with 2 outs in the fourth, nobody on, Harold Baines. And he gets a 5-3, and on Scarberry, that's a ground ball to the pitcher. He is a 1, that's an 8, and that's going to be a 1-base error by Scarberry. So, Baines is on E1, and we have an error for Scarberry. And now that brings up with Harold Baines at first base and 2 away, that brings up Gallego. And that's a 4-7. And on Scarberry, that's the second baseman. The second baseman is George Orta, and he's a second base 4. And that's an 18-4 at second. And that's going to be an out 1. So he goes. Gallego goes out to end that inning, and that was a 4-3. And there are no runs for the A's in the 4th, and now that brings up the 5th inning with the White Sox coming to bat in the 5th. And Alan Bannister not leading off. I have a bad habit of doing that. Chet Lemon will actually be leading off against Bob Welch. He gets a 2-7. It's fly ball left field. So that's a fly out to 7. That brings up Jorge Orta. He gets a 3-12, which is a ground ball first base B. Ground out to 3. And that brings up Lamar Johnson with 2 outs in the 5th against Welch. And he gets a 5-3, and that's a fly ball left field. The A's left fielder is Ricky Henderson, and he's a 2, and that's a roll of 7. I believe that's an out, but we will check it for accuracy, and it is. And so he flies out to 7 to end that inning, and no runs across for the White Sox in this very good matchup so far, especially for the White Sox. And now that brings up Mike Bordick in the bottom of the 5th against Scarberry. And he gets a 6-7, and that's a single. So Bordick with a single, a hit allowed by, or wait, no, it's wrong, recorded the wrong place. Bordick with a single and a hit. That's the first hit allowed by Scarberry? Wow. Mike Bordick got it too. That's really crazy. So Mike Bordick is at first with nobody out, and Terry Steinbach, the catcher, is up, and he gets a 6-6, and that's a single 1 to 3. And that's an out. So it's a line out to third base. So Steinbach, line out to 5. 1 away with a runner at first. Brooke Jacoby's up. 3-7, that's a fly ball left field B, and he is out. Flies out to 7. And that brings up Ricky Henderson. And he gets a 1-4, and that's a ground ball shortstop A. So 6-3 to end the 5th. And no runs across for the A's in the 5th. A 1-hitter going for Scarberry. Unbelievable. And now you've got Lamar Johnson. Do you have, no, you have, yeah, Kevin Bell. Kevin Bell leading off against Bob Welch. And he gets a 4-3, and that's going to be a first base C, so that's 1 away. So he goes out to 3. With 1 out, that brings up Greg Pryor, or no, Claudell Washington. Claudell Washington up against Bob Welch. He gets a 5-8. 5-8 is a fly ball left field B on Welch, so he flies out to 7. And this is quite the pitcher's duel here. And now that brings up Greg Pryor. And he gets a 5-5, and that's a ground ball second base C. So that's a 4-3. The White Sox get nothing in the 6th. And up come the A's in the bottom of the 6th. And that and that will bring up, I know he made the last out, so this brings up Willie Wilson to lead off against Scarberry. He gets a 6-4, which is a single for Willie Wilson. He gives up his second hit. The A's are not generating a lot of offense here, so they're going to see about Wilson stealing. According to this, now remember we're going by the elementary rules, so Naharadny's a catcher 4, so I believe that's a -3. I think that's a -3. Yes. So he'll take off 3 from whatever going to second for an A is, and that's 1 to 15, and so it becomes a 1 to 12, and they're going to try that, and they do make it. So Willie Wilson got a single, and he stole a base. And now he's at second with no outs, and that brings up Mark McGuire. And he gets a 3-8, and that is a fly ball center field B. That's 1 away. Fly out to 8. 1 out with, let's put Wilson back at second. Jose Canseco up. They're going to pitch to him. They decide to pitch to him, and it's 6-6, single 1 to 3. And it is a single for Canseco. So Canseco gets a single, and that advances Willie Wilson over to third. And now they will bring the infield in with 1 out, and Harold Baines up. You know what? He's probably a double play machine. I think we're gonna play the infield back. The White Sox play the infield back and hope for a double play or a shallow fly or a pop up or something like that. And they don't get that. They get a single. They get a double 1 to 8 on 1-7, single double asterisk, which would have scored the run anyway. So he gets a single and RBI. Wilson scores a run, and now there are runners again at the corners. And Gallego up, and with Gallego up, we will bring the infield in. And he gets a 1-6, and that's a walk to load the bases. So Gallego walks, and Scarberry walks his 4th guy. And that's going to be it for Scarberry with the bases loaded and 1 out. The White Sox will go to the bullpen, and they will bring in Fred Howard, the little-known Fred Howard, to pitch. So Fred Howard closed the book on Scarberry after 5 1/3, is it? 5 1/3. But he did allow an earned run, and he could still allow some more. There it is. And that's going to bring up Mike Bordick. Mike Bordick, not a great hitter. We're going to keep the infield back because we really got to hope to get out of this inning with a ground ball. So, and he gets a 3-4, which is a pop out to shortstop. So he's out. Pop out to 6. And now the base is loaded, 2 outs. And Steinbach up. And he gets a 5-6, and that's a second base X, and the second baseman's a 4, and that's a 19-4. That may be an out. And it is. So he goes out 4-3, but the A's tied in the 6th, and now we're going to the 7th inning. With the score tied, let me get another drink. With the score here tied at 1, between the A's and the White Sox. And in the top of the 7th, we got, do we have Greg Pryor? No, we have Squires in the top of the 7th. Batting against Welch. He gets a 3-3 ground ball, second base A, so that's 4-3, and he's out, one away. That brings up Bill Naharodny, who's perfect for the day, 2 for 2. And he gets a, what is that? It's a 3-8. And that's a home run 1-16 for Bill Naharodny. Bill Naharodny is going to be the MVP of this game, folks, possibly. It's a home run off of Welch. That scores the run, and he allows a hit and another earned run. They will keep him out there right now, though. But Alan Bannister's up, and he gets a 6-5, and that is a strikeout for Welch. Bannister strikes out. Welch gets the K, first of the game for Welch, and that brings up Chet Lemon, and Chet Lemon gets a 4-6, and that's a ground ball, third base A. So that's going to be 5-3. The White Sox do get a run on a Bill Naharodny home run. And now what we are going to do is take a look at this defense. Now Lemon just made the last out. We're going to take a look at the defense and see if there's something we can do about defensive replacements, although really this team was not well known for its defense. Let's see, yes, Bannister, who just batted, is going to be taken out of the game, and we will put in Rusty Torres in left. So let's make a note of that. Torres, left field 2, is replacing Bannister. And we are going to bring in Jim Morrison to play second base for Orta, who would lead off next inning, but it will now be Jim Morrison leading off next inning. So let's put that down. Morrison in at second base as a 3. And I don't think there are too many other defensive replacements possible here. Oh, okay, Morrison. No, not really. So, that's going to be it for the defensive replacements. And Fred Howard, we're going to let Fred Howard try to pitch another inning. Hopefully he doesn't get hit up too badly here. 7th inning, Jacoby up. The A's, I'm going to say they'll pinch hit for Brooke Jacoby. And they're going to pinch hit Dave Henderson for him. So that brings in Dave Henderson as a pinch hitter. And then at third base, they're going to bring in Scott Brocious. And he's a third base 4. Brocious, third base 4, defensively. But right now, at the plate, Dave Henderson, and he gets a 2-8, and that's a single. So that plan worked, at least for the moment. Bottom of the 7th, yes. Henderson with the single. And a hit by Howard, given up by Howard. Brocious becomes the new guy in that lineup, in that spot in the lineup. But Henderson will stay in to run. He's third base here. He's running 1-15. So no outs. Runner at first base. And that brings up Ricky Henderson at the top of the lineup. Is that correct? That is correct. And he gets a 211, and that's a ground ball B. So now Henderson is at first. And that was a ground ball to third base, so 5-3, or 5-4, because they got the lead runner, fielder's choice. Now it's Henderson at first base, and he's going to try to take off and steal second, and he does not do it. He's gunned down by Naharodny. Naharodny has been the MVP of this game, folks. So Wilson is out trying to steal, and that brings it to 2 outs. And now we have Willie Wilson, and he gets a 2-6, and that is a line out to shortstop. So there are no runs coming across for the A's in the 7th, and now we go to the top of the 8th. And that brings up Jim Morrison, the new second baseman right now, and he gets a 4-6 on Welch, who walks him, and that's going to be it for Welch. Morrison with a walk in the 8th, and Welch with his 4th walk of the game. They will take him out. And coming in for Welch will be no, not him. Joe Klink is going to come in for Bob Welch. So let's make a note of that. Joe Klink. What did he give him? 5 hits? 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. So 4 hits allowed by Welch. 2 earned runs so far. And he just went 7, because there are no outs yet in the 8th. So that brings up Lamar Johnson with a man at first, facing Joe Klink now. And he gets a 3-9, and that's a walk. So Lamar Johnson draws a walk. Right, Lamar Johnson, who is... Wait a minute. That's not Lamar Johnson. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I was thrown off by the pinch hitter just having hit. So Lamar Johnson gets a walk. And that's a walk given up by Klink. And that brings up Kevin Bell with 2 on and no outs. And he gets a 112, and that's a fly ball left field B plus injury. First of all, let's resolve the out. And that's a 10-2 in left field. Because Ricky Henderson is a 2, and that's an out 5. So that's 1 away, and that was Bell. Fly out to 7. Now let's resolve the injury. He stays in the game. So Kevin Bell, only minor injury there, a little banged up, and that brings up Claudell Washington with 1 out and 2 on, and he gets a 3-10, and that's a ground ball, second base double play. So that is a 4-6-3 double play. No runs for the White Sox in the 8th. And that will bring bring up. Now we are going to take Fred Howard out of the game. The White Sox will, and we are bringing in effectively the closer, and that will be, if you know the 79 White Sox, you know that the closer effectively is really Ed Farmer. And we are going with Ed Farmer, although he did start that season too, but that happened a lot back in the 70s and 80s. But Ed Farmer will come in, and that is 1 2/3 for Fred Howard, and no runs and only 1 hit allowed. And is it Willie Wilson? No, it's McGuire to lead off the 8th. And he gets a 4-9, and that's a walk. So McGuire leads off with a walk. Farmer walks the man, walks McGuire, and that brings up his Bash brother buddy, Jose Canseco. Canseco gets a strikeout, 1 away. Or is it? Is that 1 away, or is that 2 away? That is 1 away. So strikeout for Canseco. Farmer gets his first strikeout of the game. Harold Baines up, 6-10. That's a walk for Harold Baines. So Baines gets a walk. Moves McGuire to second. Farmer, that's his second walk allowed. Brings up Gallego. And he gets a 3-3, and that's a ground ball shortstop A, and that's going to end the inning. 6-4-3 double play. Ends the inning. And we still have a 2-1 lead for the White Sox going to the top of the 9th inning. And Greg Pryor coming up against Joe Klink. And 3-7 is going to be a ground ball shortstop A. Their shortstop is Bordick. He's a 3. 19-3 at shortstop. Don't know what that is. Probably a roll again. Yes. And that brings up a 9, and that's an out. So, I guess, was that Pryor? Yes, that was Pryor. So he went 6-3. And that brings up, with 1 out, Mike Squires. 4-5. That is a, on Klink, that is a strikeout. So Squires strikes out, and that's the first strikeout for Klink. And that brings up Bill Naharodny again. And let's see if he can have a perfect day. 5-9. He can, folks. 1-1 or a single double asterisk. A single for Bill Naharodny. This is incredible. So Klink allows a hit. And that's Bill Naharodny at first. And that brings up Rusty Torres. And he gets a 2-9, and he walks on 2-9. He came in for, defensively for Bannister. And he gets a walk. And that moves Naharodny to second. And now there's 2 on with 2 out. Chet Lemon up. And he gets a 4-6. And that's a walk to load the bases. So he's falling apart here. Chet Lemon with a walk in the 9th. Klink with the walk. And now they are going to take Klink out. And they are going to bring in the Eck. They're bringing in the Eck. They're going to hope to shut it down right now. And get them to the bottom of the 9th, where hopefully they could score at least 1 run to tie the game. But first, we have to resolve what happens with George Orta batting against the Eck. And he gets a 2-9, and that's a strikeout. So Jim Morrison gets a strikeout. And Eckersley strikes the man out to end the inning. And now it all comes down to the 9th inning for the A's. They have to try to see if they can get a run here. And they don't have the odds in their favor with their worst part of their lineup starting off. They will have Bordick starting off, although they'll probably pinch hit for Bordick, I would imagine. In any scenario that would happen. Any scenario like this, that would happen. Dave Henderson already pinch hit. Walt Weiss is a possibility. They really don't have a lot of good hitters here. They're going to go with Lance Blankenship. So Blankenship will come in to be a pinch hitter in the 9th against Farmer. And we'll be looking at Blankenship's card. He gets a 111, and that's a single. Pinch hitters are doing pretty well in this game. Single in the 9th for Blankenship. Off of Ed Farmer. And Bordick was the shortstop, so he'll come out. Although Blankenship will stay in and run, and he's an A stealer. So he's probably going to steal. But for right now, they're going to bring in the new shortstop will be Walt Weiss, if it comes to that. But Blankenship is a stealing A, so he is going to try to steal on Naharodny, and he is thrown out. Blankenship out stealing. So that brings up Steinbach with one away. And does that bring up Steinbach? Yes, it does bring up Steinbach in the 9th. And he gets a 3-5, and that's a strikeout right between a lot of things. Strikeout for Farmer. And now it's all up to Scott Brocious. And they don't really have any good pinch hitters on the team, so he is going to be the one that actually hits against him, and he gets a 4-8 and he walks. So there is a walk for Brocious in the 9th. 2 outs. Man at first. Farmer allowing all kinds of guys on base. And that brings up, with 1 on and 2 outs, Ricky Henderson. And he gets a 2-4, and that's a ground ball, pitcher B, and that will be the game and the inning and the everything. So he gets a 1-3, and we have a win for the White Sox. And the final score is 2-1. The save will go to Farmer, and the win, I think, goes to Fred Howard, and the loss will go to Bob Welch, who did give up the home run. And easily the MVP for the White Sox in this game is Bill Naharodny, who was 4 for 4 with 3 singles and a home run. So I hope you enjoyed that. But for right now, it's me, Sportsman Z, Bob Zalke, signing off.